Good morning.
Morning.
Yes, my name is John Sobanjo. As I said, I'm a civil engineer by profession. Actually, I worked with Texas A&M and California DOC for several years. So my core is transportation engineering, but this experience with the center really opened my mind up in terms of human factors, behavioral studies, because normally when we design roadways or traffic, we assume some numbers for everybody. But this center has been like 4 years now. I've learned a lot from Dr. Neil China's both psychologists, even David and Lisa. I've worked with them, going to their seminars. There's so much human factors that are involved, and especially for aging people. So what I'm gonna do is talk about multidisciplinary. Basically, I'm gonna try and sell our center for you and to see what we do. Also talk about some of the research we're working on. Our center is multidisciplinary, as you can see, centered around civil engineering. In the College of Engineering, we have social sciences, geography, urban planning, we have psychology, we have allied health, and so we're going to talk about things what we're doing. And I like to show this typically when I present, so that if you're not interested, you can go out, go to sleep. In a nutshell, what I'm going to talk about is basically our center is, we focus on aging, safety and accessibility, and it was funded by the US DOT for a 4-year period for $4.2 million, and we're trying to get an extension for 1 more year. We have 4 areas of research that we formulated under 2 legislative acts, and also we've done about 30 research projects in 3 cycles, and also I'm going to talk about technologies, which is the focus of my presentation. We do more than that, but I'm going to focus on those. And what you see in red is basically some of the research I'm directly involved in, and I'm going to spend a few slides on those. So I don't know if you're familiar with the legislative acts, because to get money in transportation, the Congress has to pass those bills. And the first one we got our funding on was called MAP 21 in 2013. And we applied, and basically we focus on 2 of the 5 areas, safety and livable communities. And based on our proposal, we focus on 4 areas of research. I cannot read them from here, but you can see basically accessibility, human factors, thematic design, and health. So we focus on that, and based on that, we actually did our projects. Our center was based on a very strong peer review of proposals. And what we did was each proposal has to be checked against all those MAP 21 requirements. I don't know if you can read that from the back, but you can see each of the projects has to satisfy at least 1 or 2 of those criteria. The reason being that we are engineers primarily, but we need to work with other people to make sure we accomplish this. That was the first cycle. This is the second cycle, and we just show you a sample of projects. And some of them actually have some other parameters that were not part of the formal requirement, including things like emergency evacuation, innovative transition strategies, and improving methods for simulator studies. So we went from MAP 21, which was enacted in 2013, expired I believe 2015. So the new act is called FAST, or Fixing American Surface Transportation Act, FAST Act, which actually gave money for the new set of centers and to spend money in transportation. We remain with the 4 trusts of research areas, but we overlaid it with the new what we call priority areas. So these are the ones our center is working on. So now, technology, we've done a lot of projects, but I'm going to focus on some sample of the technology-based research. One of them is the 3D transportation safety models, which is actually looking at complex intersections and how aging people are going to be able to interact and identify if there's any risk on those kind of intersections. And basically, we formed a very sophisticated 3D models of a real life or intersection in Tallahassee, which was very complex. I believe it's by elevation and kind of turnings. So we actually do that input into a driving simulator study and see these areas that's going to make aging drivers uncomfortable. We also did a research which is mainly towards the biological area. We actually have a we did a biomechanics study of basically what it is we form a model, like a structural model of a human being, including all the organs and everything, and we subject it to collision in simulation and see what part of the body are more vulnerable. And right now, since we only did 1 big project, we had a PhD and a master's student on this. We intend to extend it, working with medical people at FSU. We finding out that the way you apply a seatbelt in an adult, an aging person may be different from a typical human being. So that's one of the findings. We have the report on our website. We also did a research on what they call cutaway transit buses. And what this does is we have a very complex engineering model that we subject to collision, turnover, rollovers, and see what could be improved to help aging people who are occupants. And all this also, I wasn't directly involved in this, but the reports are shown on our website. And lastly, connected vehicle, automated vehicles. We also do a lot of study. I'm involved with four studies actually, that is focusing on this. And like Herman said, connected vehicles are typically, people use these terms very kind of, I won't say loosely, but it's not really well defined. A connected vehicle is where a vehicle that has to communicate with either an infrastructure like a traffic signal or a roadside unit that will tell you where you are, what to do. Or you could have automated or autonomous vehicle, which like the Teslas, do not need any assistance from infrastructure or anybody. And they can just, what they do is they have a LiDAR, they scan things and identify them quickly. This is a human, this is a goat, this is a car, what do you do? So, but we also have a connected automated vehicle, meaning that they actually can be enhanced by communicating with other cars or infrastructure. So this project is something that they just finished, we just finished in December. And the idea here was to simulate a traffic of connected vehicle. But reality is, as David said earlier, it's going to be even difficult to have 100% connected vehicles in the traffic stream. For the next so many years, I'm thinking 20 years, it's going to be mixed traffic, meaning that there's going to be conventional vehicles mixed with automated or connected vehicles. So what we say is that now, we don't have any real life data set. I know they have this UMC in Michigan, but you cannot see a real traffic made up of connected vehicle or mixture of the connected vehicle and conventional. So what we did in simulation is to actually, in this case the driving simulator, is to actually simulate the traffic on the freeway and try to identify the problems or the situations that an agent driver or a regular driver will have trying to merge onto that freeway, which is a very serious issue because many crashes occur in those situations. So what we try to do is we build what they call penetration rate. Is basically where you have is a fancy name for how many percent of your traffic is connected vehicle. Let's say you have everybody's connected because 100% penetration rate. If it's zero, that means it's all conventional vehicles. So what we do was the subject driver is one merging onto the on the on-ramp onto the traffic, and we're going to be, that will be the driver, on the simulator. And then we also have we look at the acceleration and everything. Then we also look at the vehicles, how they're behaving on the main freeway. So what we did was we look at what has been done so far. Some people have actually been working on this, both mostly technical or I would say mathematical or theoretical. People have been doing simulation models, and the idea is to see what they call the arrival rate or time between vehicles. The assumption is typical when vehicles are random, it's exponential time between them. If it's 100% automated vehicle, it's going to be like uniform because the idea is connected vehicles can stay closer and maintain that gap or headway between themselves. So we mathematically simulated vehicles on the freeway, and on the merging ramp is conventional vehicle. You're going there because you have to make decisions. We're trying to see your decision-making attributes. So we generated those vehicles, and like I said, there's some mathematical models or papers written on this. You can see the one at the bottom. You can have a situation of connected vehicle following a manual or conventional, or you have each type of the same. So we put that into the simulator, and basically we use a model called drive safety model. I think it's kind of in between. It's not very sophisticated and it's not very simple to use. So basically we look at that and we have three scenarios. The first scenario was basically based on, by the way, we treated all the participants, went through the IRB and all the requirements. And we actually look at them and say, okay, without any driving, look at those vehicles passing and what do you think is the right headway or the gap that you can merge into the main traffic. So we collected that data, and then we actually made them drive. Okay, the second scenario was driving, whereby every vehicle on the freeway was conventional, a regular vehicle. Because I know people have done this research several times on that. And then the third scenario was to actually add in 50% connected vehicle. You may be asking me why not 25, 75? Because of the time for simulation. Even this study took around 50 minutes, which everybody knows is a long time to be in front of a simulator because of the sickness. So we have to limit it to 50% penetration mix. In the future, we'll try and find out, maybe we can reduce some other things and make it with different number of penetration rates. So if you're familiar with the simulation study, this is how we develop our scenario. We have some trigger points where we collected the data. And the main thing is basically we look at gap distance, gap headway. That was the main thing, because if you don't select the right headway to get into the traffic, there could be issues with collision yourself or people behind on the main traffic. So what we did was actually collected things like the speed, acceleration of both the subject driving and also the vehicles on the freeway. And also see if there's any collision if it occurs. And by the way, we created the scenarios that the subject can drive through 5 different ramps and collected those data on the 5. Each ramp has a new set of random set of vehicles as the coding, so you can get random, more or less independent data. And the result is, again, sorry to cloud the slide with all these results, but basically so far we didn't see any, the only major difference we saw, I can conclude, is we have people who are able to accept a lower headway. By the way, let me go back here. A headway is, there are two things. A gap is the distance between the tail of the front vehicle and the front bumper of the following vehicle. A headway is the time, let's say you stay on the spot on a freeway and you see when the vehicle comes, and the time the next one comes, the same spot is the headway in seconds. So that's what we actually captured on the study. So basically we have different averages. The first box on the left is talking about what we call a theoretical gap, because we can collect data from what you perceive and say, okay, let's create some model theoretically and we'll calculate what we call a critical gap. The gap meaning that this is what is, beyond that, you may have anything smaller than that could be unsafe. And then we actually have people drive through and see the gap that they actually chose to go conveniently. So those are the averages, and we also did some maneuver tests to see if there's any difference. There was no difference. The main thing I can say as a difference is people were able to, the gap when there was no connected vehicles on the mix, people were able to, they have a luxury of picking up larger gaps or headways, but when you actually have more connected vehicles, the gaps reduce, and they were still able to get in at a lower headway. But as you're going to see, and that was the main difference. We look also at the difference by gender and by age. And you can see there's some slight differences. I cannot read from here, but the older drivers, they would prefer to take they try to use a gap that's actually larger than what the younger drivers were able to do because of the aggression of the young drivers. So, but the other differences are not very significant. We also look at everybody's average over those 5 ramps and see how much gap they accepted. As you can see, the blue dots are for the 50% vehicles. I mean, they are 50% CAVs, meaning you have half of the vehicles on the freeway to be connected vehicles. You can see people were able to accept gaps that were smaller. And we also look at driving the years experience, because we look at in the questionnaire, we asked how many years they've been driving. And again, the clusters were just similar. It wasn't significant. And but more importantly, there's the data we got. We still have to analyze this more, but what this data is showing me is what I call the ripple effect, meaning that when you go when you merge onto the freeway, you may be able to merge safely, but what happened to the vehicles behind the person you maybe cut off somebody? And we're able to check those speed profiles of the trailing vehicles, and we also observe some things that we recorded. Basically, if I can give you an example here, it's difficult to interpret the drawings, but if you look at the drawing on the right, That's for an elderly driver, and you can see this driver, as the person was going, they actually stopped because they were hesitant before they accelerated to go into the gap. Okay, whereas this is a young driver who actually just went in straight, more aggressive. And then the trailing vehicles, you can see the young driver, the one in the red on this young subject driver, the car that this person went in front of to make that gap actually had to decelerate rapidly. So you can see that those effects were monitored, and it shows the effect of the aggression of the driver. So conclusions, basically, people have a perception that they can go in at a lower gap than the theory, the estimate shows. And also, on the average, as I said, the drivers, both young and elderly, they actually accepted when driving shorter headways because they were made to do it. But there are some consequences in terms of safety concerns on the vehicles on the roadway. And limited observation, because we have not analyzed all the data for the speed profiles, showed that people, even if you're able to merge successfully, there may be some consequences in terms of you having people crash. There were one or two people actually having collisions between the vehicles. And lastly, we don't have any mitigation solutions yet, but the main thing is to probably, when you have automated vehicles on the freeway and it's not 100%, there may be a need to actually have a good ramp control system for the on-ramp, people merging. And also, if there's a way, because everybody's connected, that means the driver on the ramp will know when to go. Actually, the person on the freeway will actually allow that person to access the freeway on the ramp. So that was the story about the on-ramp. The other three stories we're working on, and this has to do with what they call traffic microscopic simulation, meaning that you look at this stream of traffic and actually try to see how they're behaving, the density, the flow, the velocity, and these things, again, this is very theoretical in terms of we have three areas. And what we have is we have what we call a VSIM, it's a simulation tool that actually tries to simulate the traffic throughout the day and say, okay, you're going to have this much congestion or not, or even crashes. So we look at three areas. One is work zone. We want to see what happened in the work zone, and the emphasis also is on both regular persons and elderly people, because in this software you can actually modify some of the human behavior characters to suit an older person. So one is in the work zone, the other one has to do with intersections, and the last one has to do with capacity, which we're working on, which will be finishing sometime this summer. And also, future plans. Our college is actually pushing for an initiative, and they're putting a lot of money into it in FSU and FAMU, that we're going to have, they identify three areas that they want us to work on and work with Aaron on this. One is the smart city, another one is the successful longevity, and the other one is connected vehicles. So I'm leading this effort. We're going to be writing proposals to NSF on ERC type of proposal, and basically coming here and be able to make contact with people we can use as collaborators. Also, we're working with the City of Orlando. Actually, they have a project they're trying to build. It's called I think it's Colonial Parkway project. It's the development, they're doing the drawings and everything, but they invite us to come and give input on how they can incorporate technology, especially for old aging people also. So I've attended one of the meetings. And also we have Tampa, familiar with connected vehicle. They actually have money to test real life some of the connected vehicle concept. And one of them actually, I invited one of the guys to come and talk in the seminar. They're actually looking at pedestrian crossings that will involve, that will be able to help disabled people and aging people. So we're involved in that, and they will be very good collaborators. And lastly, Transportation Day, we do it every year for 4 years. It's one of the highlights of our center. We actually invite people from the community, K-12 and aging people. We do coffee, David mentioned it to you. It's very, very impressive stuff. And then we bring people from the industry to come and maintain kiosks. We have panels for discussion, we have students, we have presentation and posters, and actually the guy on the lectures from AAA, they have their simulator there. So I hope I make my time. Thank you.